My stated intention is to be the dumbest guy in every room I walk into.
This is the story of Adam Melonas, CEO of Chew and a trailblazer in food technology and conscious capitalism.
Chew is very much a meritocracy. If it comes down to opinions, mine will always rule. But if it comes down to facts and data, data will absolutely rule. I will be wrong every day of the week based on data. Frankly, just in the business world. The only bad decision is indecision. When you make a decision, stand behind it, execute like hell. Even if it's the wrong decision and you execute like hell, you're going to get results. If that result is a whopping great big lesson, use that, apply it to the next thing. Make sure that you're smarter and faster each and every time.
How does that impact you personally?
The worry doesn't stop. I worry from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep. Maybe one of the punchlines of my life is about...
Tell us a little bit about you. Give us kind of your quick bio.
Yeah, so living in the US, so living in Boston, but actually I'm an Australian, given this funny, the Australian people call it a weird accent these days, but left school when I was very young, but also started my career, I should say, at 8 years old. 8 years old, I was, let's say, discontent with the, I think it was 50 cents every 2 weeks of, we called it pocket money, but it was allowance. I figured that I wanted something to be a little bit more than that. So I figured best lesson my parents ever taught me was hard work. So basically saved up $5, I think it was. Asked my father to go to the store. We bought a bucket, a sponge, probably some car shampoo that was one step above stripping the paint off cars, and just started knocking on doors and said, "Do you want a car wash?" And the first person said yes. And they said, "How much?" And I hadn't gotten that far ahead. There was no business plan at that point. So I figured the bucket and stuff cost me $5. So I said $5. And they said, "Great. We've got 2 cars. If you're good, we'll have you come back and wash those every week." So I turned 50 cents every 2 weeks into $10 a week and figured, let's leverage this 8-year-old lanky, awkward child thing, knocking on more doors. And so turned this into a business that basically took up all of my time. Then by 9 years old, started employing my school friends. I would send them where to go, and then they would give me a cut of what they earned. And then that then led me to about 14 years and 9 months old, just before I was 15, became an apprentice chef. So left school, started down the route of technical college and on-the-job training. By 18, qualified, jumped on a plane when I was 19, headed to London, figured the people in Australia didn't have the answers that I was looking for. And so headed to London. By 19 years old, was chef partner of a restaurant in Notting Hill. Frankly, lied my way into the role. Told them, I think when I was 19, I told them I was 27, because there's this weird association with somehow the older you are, the more you know. And so therefore the opposite's also true. 19-year-olds know nothing.
Let me ask, you kind of already had this great early entrepreneurial experience. I imagine you knew you probably wanted to be a business owner. Why a chef? Did you think like restaurants were really going to be where it's at, or like what was the thinking there?
I was always working in school. I say this somewhere to qualify to say that I'm not an idiot, right? But in school, I was operating in this program called Fast Paced, and Fast Paced was you were 2 years in front of your actual age, and so I was doing that. I was applying myself, frankly, just enough to pass, not enough to, really excel, but I was passing. But my mind was elsewhere, and I knew I loved to work with my hands, right? I think the cliche answer I could tell you was I started cooking dinner for my family when I think I was 8 or 9. The cliche answer would be I was in my grandmother's kitchen licking the spatula, and therefore all of a sudden I said I have to be a chef. If that were the case, the whole world would be chefs, right? So that romantic version is not really true. But essentially, I loved doing things with my hands. I loved the creative process. I loved the follow the rules the first time, bend the rules the next time, but you can't bend the rules until you know the rules. So I really loved this kind of tension between the recipe and the creativity. So started down that track. Frankly, if I wanted to make money, restaurant is the last place you want to go because it's just typically they're a money pit, and it's a coin flip to see if it's going to work or not. But my career, let's break this out into chapters. Chapter 1 of my career was what I now lovingly refer to as expensive food for rich people. First chapter of the career was molecular gastronomy, frankly, all about my own ego, right? What was mine, what was new technology, new processes, 32 course tasting menus, 50 people for 5 nights a week that would require 50 chefs to cook for these 50 people. It was, again, expensive food for rich people. And then, fast forward, I was in Spain for about 7 years. And I just woke up one day and I said, there's got to be more to it than this, right? I want to be able to create impact for a much larger group of people. I always say, bless you, small thinking's for small people, right? I'm 6'5", right? And so that's somewhere my excuse or somewhere my permission to say, let's go a little bigger. And so I love food, right? I see food as my favorite vehicle to be able to communicate to the world what's kind of up here into how I see the world. So looked at this big wide world of consumer packaged goods. And now kind of here's the penny drop, right? People call it food, but then, through the eyes and mind of an arrogant chef, I said, this stuff doesn't represent food by my standards. So I wonder what could happen if I applied left side, right side of the brain thinking. I had scientists in my kitchens ever since I was 19 years old. So it made sense, the analytical and the creative coming together. And so ended up coming here to the US, starting a candy company with an American businessman called Unreal. Crazy journey, scaled that to about 35,000 doors nationwide. Cap table was the stuff dreams are made of, right? It was Bill Gates, it was Vinod Khosla, it was Matt Damon, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Brady, Giselle, Jack Dorsey, John Legend. Everybody was on that cap table. And, there was a little bit of a head scratching moment because we were a unapologetically for-profit company on a social mission. And so here's where, this understanding came of the power of doing good by doing good, that you didn't need to be a non-profit with your hand out saying, give me money and let me distribute that in an unsustainable, unscalable way, where you could be a for-good company and you could be a profit driving company as well. And that was kind of the beginning of this kind of CPG adventure, which I call Chapter 2.
And I like that kind of philosophy of being a for-profit company that does good. We had a gentleman on the podcast previously who is very into the kind of conscious capitalist movement. Do you have any, before we kind of move on to the next chapter, any recommendations for folks who are looking at, if there are other kind of leaders here who are looking at how to align their business with like positive non-financial outcomes, right? Like they'd like to have great financial outcomes, obviously, but they'd also like to do some good in the process. Any resources you'd recommend for people for that sounds interesting?
Maybe lessons or maybe just some maybe guiding principles, which is, frankly, I think a lot of people are in a rush to try to create impact, which is absolutely noble. But the problem is they forget about the fact that the greatest impact can be created if you build the most kind of rock solid business that absolutely scales, right? And so these unsustainable, unscalable business models where people are frankly going after, again, which is very noble, very honorable, but they're going after these causes that, again, are very big and very lofty, but they forget about the fact that they need to build a sustainable, robust business in the process, because the most impact can be created off the foundation and the base of a robust, strong business. So therefore, and the opposite's also true. Sometimes people focus on the end outcome, and that end outcome is not about impact to the wider world. It's about, we're reading Fast Company magazine and everyone's looking at that and saying, what about me, right? I want to be the next tech billionaire or CPG billionaire, and those multiples look good. But the reality is, your product is obviously your greatest asset, right? That's the thing that people in my industry or our industry, we actually create a product and produce a product and sell a product that people actually put inside of their body. So if you're not focused on absolute excellence in that and every single detail done to absolute excellence, then the reality is you're so focused on the end outcome that you forget about the fact that you're going to destroy that business in the process because you've got an inferior product, but you're focused on this get rich quick program, right? And so the opposite's also true. If you focus too much on the business and it doesn't stand for anything and it doesn't deliver anything beyond just financial results, which again is interesting, but not necessarily what people are looking for these days and what makes this world a better place. So I would just say making sure that really great business and really great impact by multiple different metrics is, constitutes something that'll hopefully return investment and value, and also drive impact that we need in the world.
That's a great answer. Thank you. So for those who aren't familiar with Unreal, I just want to know, you've definitely seen this product in the grocery store. If you're based, I think, just about anywhere in the US, I think probably the most recognizable product that I've seen is like your chocolate covered coconut kind of bars. I see the packaging all over the place. Um, Fantastic product. Tell me what happened with Unreal. You come to the US, you found this company, you have all these amazing investors. I guess two questions. One, how, how do you get this kind of amazing lineup of investors? And two, why do you think it took off? I mean, obviously you had a great product focus. Obviously you're looking to create something that's actually food in the CPG space, but what was there anything else to it? Or is it as simple as that?
No, a lot more to it. Maybe this is the one to the long form 10-hour podcast, but I would say, let me give kind of the high level. So first, I was doing this bizarre thing. I was commuting between Madrid and Boston, right? It's let's just say the people who complain about a 1-hour commute from outside the city to the city, they haven't seen anything, right? So I was doing that twice a month. I was developing the products on my benchtop in Madrid, and coming here to the US with a suitcase full of samples, and we were testing with people and making sure that then the marketing was coming together in real time at the same time as well. And for a long time, it was just my business partner and myself. And until we said, well, like, we got something here. And so we were very fortunate. He was very close, or still is very close with Tom. And it made sense. Tom loved the product. Tom said, well, let me put some money in. And, it's no surprise, celebrities are friends with other celebrities. They started talking about it, this power of doing good by doing good. Everyone's like, well, I would love some of this stuff. But I guess one of the things that we didn't anticipate was, frankly, we were solving a problem that I don't think anybody knew that they had. We were trying to create the better for you version of candy, right? When in actual fact, one of the things we realized along the way, so first of all, this was kind of one of the original better for you versions of, now there's a better for you version of everything, all the way up to the absurd things. But at that particular juncture, no one was eating, say for example, no one was eating a Snickers bar saying, well, I wish this Snickers bar had less sugar or more protein, or I wish these ingredients were sustainably sourced. It's after the fact. Right? Once that craving is passed, and once you've indulged, and once you're now all of a sudden you're deep in the depths of despair, I wish I didn't have that, I wish I only ate half of that, or whatever it is, then you're like, oh, I wish it was better for me, right? But at that moment of purchase, that doesn't even enter the equation, right? And so we went wide in the beginning, right? As I mentioned, we were available in like 34,000 something stores, which is, for a startup, within the first 18 months, frankly, that's ambitious, right? And so, a couple of things there. So first and foremost, to try to market to a country, and this is before the days of like the power of digital ads, which again, there was a power phase. Now there's a highly dilutive, highly expensive, and very little return phase that we're in right now. But we were pre that. And so, we're looking at in-store, we're looking at billboards, we're looking at all of this sort of stuff. And I think in the first year, 2 years, I think there was something like $20 million spent on marketing, which frankly, no startup ever spends on marketing in their first year or 2 years. And so we went wide, we went far, we went deep, we went bold, we went all of that, trying to solve a problem that no one knew they had. And in actual fact, and we went out line priced, right? This notion that I told you, of this notion of doing good by doing good. We said we're a for-profit company on a social mission, right? But that part of the social mission, we said, well, the social mission is same place, same price. So the person didn't go to, let's say, CVS, for example. They didn't go there and they say, well, we could have one of these or two of those. Now you're adding an extra barrier to purchase. And so we said there should be no barrier to purchase. That was our part to the mission. So long story short, we essentially, the decision was made to pull back distribution, to modify the pricing model, to say, well, maybe line price is not the right thing for the company. But that was the juncture that I said to my business partner, look, first chapter of my career was expensive food for rich people. I didn't want the next chapter of my career to be that. I wanted to really democratize good food for all people. And somewhere along the way, or along that unreal process, I became irritated with a whole other set of things that I needed. Like, again, I'm sure you come across a lot of sick entrepreneurs, but like most sick entrepreneurs, I said that irritation is bothering me so much. I need to solve that thing. So it was time for the next chapter of my journey at CPG.
And what did that look like? How did you make that transition?
Good question. A lot of soul searching as to, really frankly about, I will contextualize it as one thing. It's really the sunk cost analogy, right? That sunk cost analogy is, I've given this thing so much time, so much of my soul, so much of my energy, all of these sorts of things. So do I keep on doing this for a little longer? Or do I see this other thing that I think I can materially make an impact and solve? And so obviously I've got a very, let's say, patient wife. We worked through all of these particular details, and I said, look, the irritation that I've got right now is during those unreal days, and frankly, even before the unreal days, I would wiggle my finger at big companies and say, well, like every cliche person, the root of all evil, these companies are killing people, all of this sort of stuff. And I said, listen, the finger wiggling and the yapping is doing nothing. But at the same time, those enormous companies are feeding hundreds of millions or billions of people every single day. So if I partner with them and I create, or I have the ability to create a group of people, and we can all help create whatever the future is of each one of those categories, I can hopefully help facilitate a lot more profound change across every category in food and beverage, instead of really kind of being landlocked in one. So I guess the Unreal Days really what I wanted to do was prove that I could do it with candy. And in candy, no one ever said, well, I wish this thing could be better. No one had ever said, well, we need a better for you version of. But during that period of time, I'd removed 42% of the sugar on each of those products. I'd increased protein by, I think it was 300% more or less, increased fiber, sustainably sourced all of those ingredients all over the world, and created products that would directly replace all of those products that they were coincidentally similar to. And so again, kind of tick that box, mission achieved there. Now it was time for that next gnarly mission, which is chew.
Right on. And tell me about that. Tell me about like how you started, what that looked like, how you kind of brought the right people, the funding, everything together to start Chew.
Let's start with one of those particular irritations, because I think it kind of all falls into place after that. I was irritated. Now let's play it out, right? During the Unreal Days, I'd created these candy products in Spain. Then there was a little bit of that development was done here in the US as well. I thought I could go to an organization who could help me in this true end-to-end process. I thought there was an organization who could help me refine the concept for American people and find me onshore ingredients, onshore manufacturing to bring it to life. And I realized these are two separate sets of agencies. On the front end, I call this delusion, right? This is pretty pictures on paper. This is cupcakes and rainbows. This is stuff that no one's ever figured out. Does it scale? Is it feasible? Is it profitable? None of those things, right? So it's somewhere all of the glory. Imagine going to someone coming to you and saying, create something everyone's going to love. You'll be measured by that. But what you're not going to be measured by is actually, is it even possible? So all of the glory, none of the responsibility. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got a bunch of widget makers, right? You've got these people that'll simply take something that have not been involved in the setting of the mission, vision, values. They take this thing, they salami slice it down to something they call manufacturable. But if you compare the original concept with the ultimate output, nothing but dilution, right? So again, the salami slicing effect in real time. So I said, as a chef, connect these two ends. If you create the idea, see it through to fruition. So that's where I started to bring together these ideas. It needs to be truly end to end, and that's insight, the identification of the opportunity, the TAM, so vanity metrics, but then drilling it all the way down to serviceable, addressable market, then all the way through, hopefully in a accretive fashion, to the ultimate output of that thing needs to be accretive. So this was October 31st was 11 years ago. So created Chew October 31st, 2013. And when I say created Chew, I incorporated the company. It was just me.
Just like on the Delaware website, like, filling out the, okay.
Yep. And frankly, I'm all about symbolism. So October 31st being Halloween, being the fact that I'd come from candy and that being so kind of screwed up that whole system. So I said, this is the day that we're going to, this is the democratization of good food day. And so, cart before the horse, that's kind of my MO. I went out, found a commercial real estate agent. I said, I need a location. So I found the location, signed the location, still just me, and started building this thing, still just me. And essentially was very fortunate. A good friend of mine, his good friend was one of the C-suite at one of the biggest food companies in the world. He got me a meeting. I went into that meeting and basically pitched what we do. This is our end-to-end process. This is, how we do it. This is what we've achieved. And I still remember it was the CEO who's like, at the end of it, he's like, whoa, well, this is amazing. This sounds like exactly what we want, what we need. How much?
Back to that same problem. Yeah, back to washing cars.
History doesn't repeat itself, it just echoes, right? So therefore, in this situation, I said $100,000 a month. And by the way, we only do 12-month retainers. And he's like, $100,000 a month? I've never heard of that. And I was like, hey, listen, you are, X company. You are one of the biggest in the world. And he's like, you know what? We are one of the biggest in the world. Why aren't we paying $100,000 a month? And so basically did the deal, 1-year deal, 1.2 million for the year. And then the rest is history. Then I had the money to actually finish the construction. I actually could hire some people. And then we hit the ground running. I did obviously the fuzzy front end, made sure I was doing all the insights, the intel gathering, frankly, the early R&D. Then we started onboarding people. Then all of a sudden we could scale and we could do exactly what I said we could do. And then that relationship ended up lasting, I think that was about 4 years with that first particular one. And then we just continued to build from there.
Right on. I love that. So as you're building, I mean, you started in 2013, Halloween of 2013. Have there been any bumps along the way? Any kind of oh shit moments?
How long have you got? Past tense, and frankly, on any given day, present tense. Listen, this stuff is not a straight line, right? It's a roller coaster at best. There's, we were growing very nicely. Again, not without its bumps, but growing really nicely until 2019. 2019, frankly, we got slapped. I thought we were, frankly, I often say we got fat and lazy because we considered the top 10 food and beverage companies in the world to be clients. I figured, well, that's your hedged portfolio, right? Something happens with one, well, you got a bunch of them, right? Yeah, obviously we're gonna overinvest. We're gonna deploy excellence in each and every one. So we don't anticipate any of them to go. But if one was to go, then it wasn't going to be the end of the world. Well, in the year 2019, and I think it was half of 2018 and all of 2019, in that 18-month period of time, of the top 10 food and beverage companies in the world, there was 110% changeover of CEOs, right? With Kraft Heinz being the exception. They did it twice, just for good measure. The reality was, because we had been so well positioned as the secret weapon to these, to the boards, the C-suite, the CEOs, etc. As we can see from current politics, when one administration comes in and the other one goes out, they say, well, listen, we don't want to do anything the previous one did. So all of a sudden, we're on the back foot, right? I would say 2019 was our first unprofitable year since founding. And so lots of lessons to be had there, which is, don't just engage with executive leadership. Make sure you're engaged throughout every different function and part of the organization. 2020, I will tell you, and somewhere this is a little bit of a mea culpa. I hope I didn't cause the pandemic, but in Q1 of 2020, I think it was in early Feb, I said to the team, we're back. This is the highest rate of momentum we have ever had as a company. We had 16 deals in the pipe. I think we had 12 of those we'd had verbal yeses on. We were in contracting phase. We was gangbusters. And then all of a sudden, March rolls around and we go from losing all of those in the pipe, 100% of those are gone. Of those contracts that we had contracted, I would say slowly but surely, but I'd say more accurately, quickly, I would say within a 3-4 week period, we had calls from each and every one of those saying, hey, listen, we don't know where this thing's going. We're focused on supply chain and efficiencies and this and that. Can we pause our agreements because we don't know what's going on? And what am I going to hold them to their contract and say, we have a signed contract? I didn't even know what was going on. So therefore, in order to preserve the relationships, I said, of course. Now with the rest of the business goes to zero. Pipeline is dead. Contract base is dead. We go to literally dead in the water. So I don't know if you call that a speed bump, but we created.
So before we talk about what comes next, like how does that impact you personally?
I can't even tell you. There were long periods of time. Frankly, we had these like lockdowns and things like that here in Boston. I'll be honest with you. Let's say I used some poetic license when I was interpreting the local mandates, because in the local mandates, it said that you could, if you were a food lab, you could remain open. Now, food lab actually means like a microbiological lab, those that are testing for, micro testing and things like that. But I said, hey, we lovingly refer to this as a food lab. So candidly, I was the only one here. I was literally rattling like a ping pong here, rattling around and trying to figure out like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't sit still. I've got to figure something out. And absurdly, I decided in this period of time, I was going to start another business. And that business was going to be leveraging all the technology that we had, which is, we got millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of technology here that no kitchen has. I'm going to leverage this and I'm going to create a meal delivery service, which is going to be essentially, I do all the long cooking and then the consumer can do it in like 15 minutes. So they don't have to eat takeout every day. And fired up this business I called, what do they call it? Chew Food.
Okay. I mean, hey, that kind of makes sense, right? You're at a time where you can't go out. People have to stay in. People are ordering in and, are getting a little bit more focused on themselves, their wellness. And incidentally, I don't think anyone foresaw this, but consumers sort of had more cash in their pockets than ever before. So what happened then? What happened next? Start a new business?
Well, like most things on a whim, it didn't go well. I mean, frankly, my friends and family and everybody was thrilled because now they're getting the best cuts of meat that I'd been, cooking for 3 days and all of this sort of stuff that, frankly, try to build a business model out of that. It doesn't work. So I think we did that. Look, candidly, let's call that an investment into my own mental health, to make sure that I could be constantly moving forward, doing something that I didn't have to, and frankly, probably the marriage, that I didn't have to be sitting around doing nothing and risking everything. But let's say it didn't go well.
How long did it last?
Look, I think I gave up on that thing probably 4 months, maybe 5 months, when I realized that this is not something that, compared to the rest of the business, my time was much better spent trying to figure out what the path forward there is, because the returns, the ROI on that eclipsed. There's not enough meat and sides and fish and technology that you could sell on that side of the business to warrant that share of attention. So therefore, there was a decision to be made. Do I spend this time thinking about who are we moving forward, or do I continue on this fun thing, which frankly, I felt validation, right? Because remember the first chapter of my career, I was a chef. I call myself a recovering chef these days, but I felt, frankly, it was nice to feel useful. And so for that period of time, I felt useful, but I'm like, okay, this vacation's over. I love to cook, but I've got a greater responsibility to my family, to our team members, and hopefully to the world. This moment of joy that I'm feeling cooking, let's tick that box. Let's say that we did that, and now let's get back to reality.
So 4 months later, you've shuttered Chew Food. Your head's kind of back in the game with the keeping the main thing. What's your route back from 0
to 1? We found. So basically, I'll give you the shortened version. So essentially, I had to go through an analysis and understand, like, what did the old world have that the new world doesn't need, and what does this new potential world need that the old world didn't have, right? And so if you think about a couple of different things. First and foremost, there was a massive amount of capital on the market that was waiting to be deployed. VCs, PEs, everyone had this massive amount of capital that they're just sitting on that eventually, as the market starts opening up, needs to be deployed. So therefore, I started thinking, if you look at them, most of the small and medium-sized companies in the CPG space, these are evaporating, right? So they're not putting them with these crazy valuations. They're not putting them back where they used to put them. So therefore, check size is probably going to have to go up. And the only place that became investable at that point was things that would potentially outlast whatever this pandemic thing was that we were learning every day about. And so I started to look to food technology, right? Food tech, in my estimation, that I've always been quite vocal about, had a major PR problem. Still today has. This is an industry that talks about their product like it's an experiment. This is an industry in which, frankly, most of these companies are built by, I would say, accidental CEOs, which were essentially scientists who were enamored by their science experiment, who created this thing that they could realize in this exploding market, now all of a sudden had value. They had these valuations and this funding, etc., that they were still, frankly, they were more interested in their experiment, less interested in this thing that was like an inconvenience, which was application. And so I looked at this and I said, again, PR problem, because you're constantly leading with science says and experiment and technology, and consumers are like, I don't want technology in my mouth. So therefore, we looked at this and said, well, hey, we are the specialists of application. We can go upstream. We've got some killer scientists. We go upstream into the technology. We help manipulate and modify that technology to be better applied. We think about this in terms of a innovation strategy, right? Where's the comfortable thing that no one's going to get scared with? But then we take them on that journey 5, 10, 15 years out. And so therefore take them on the journey, right? So we looked to food tech. We ended up landing a really, really great partner there. We started doing some phenomenal work there. Then we started to diversify the business, the rest of the business being chapter 1 of the business was really about service. So then what I said was, I want to start to now double down and invest in how do we future-proof the next phase of the business. And so we started then working on what we now refer to as the venture incubator. And so essentially the service side of the business, I call it the dirty C word, this consulting word. I hate the word, but think about it more in terms of that. The other one would be essentially product, right? How do we use our own insights, our own execution, and see it all the way through to market, right? So we started then, I refer to this as the Evel Knievel route, right? So when the market was down, we had 2 choices, right? Do you stop spending? Do you cut all the heads? Do you stretch runway, right? Everyone kept on saying you need 18, 24 months of runway no matter what. And so there's that route, which feels like means to an end, right? Let's bring it back to the slowest amount and hope that we can, outlast this thing. Or the Evel Knievel route, which we put our foot on the accelerator, we go even faster, we hope that we hit escape velocity before we hit that cliff. And so obviously, given the loving way that I've referred to that, we chose Evil Knievel route. And so essentially what I said to the team is the choice we're going to make is we don't want to go back to where we were. We want to move forward to who we want to be. So therefore, let's work backwards from that point and see what needs to be changed in the process and the people and the methodology and all of those things in order to make that true.
How do you make that decision? You're looking at a team, you know that you've got, some number of families that are depending upon kind of you making the right call here. A lot of companies did say we're gonna scale back. We're gonna try and preserve as much headcount as we can while making sure that we have enough runway to kind of make it through. And a lot of folks chose that path. You chose something different. What motivated that decision?
Yeah, let me be also clear. We did do the, what is it called? It's referred to as the furlough process. We did that for 2 weeks, right? While the world was basically in a spin, we needed to figure out up from down, right? So we did enact, I believe it was that furlough process. I think it was for a 2-week period of time. But post that process, I would maybe be so arrogant to say that it was really about instinct. I wake up every day and I go to sleep every night with that sense of, frankly, responsibility. That I often refer to this as a family business, right? And a lot of people lovingly will say that, and typically it means their own family. I see this as not only my own family, but I see this as everybody else's family. When I look around the business and I walk through the office, I see marriages, I see children, I see rents and vacations and education and all of this sort of stuff. And frankly, I see that as my burden and my responsibility that I willingly and humbly accept. But frankly, this also comes back to the structuring of the company, which is, I would say, a gift and a curse that I've self-funded this business and a few others, frankly, since founding. There's no outside capital. There's nothing, no one else's capital in this. So again, that's a gift and a curse. It's a gift because we can move fast. We can do the right thing at the right time. It's a curse. I often say sometimes because it creates an echo chamber where sometimes, that outside funding, along with that, you get a board. The good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with a board, at least there's some reporting, accountability, all of this sort of stuff, which again, I think would be quite helpful. But I think to answer your question, I do lead a lot by instinct. That leads me astray sometimes, many times. But I think the scoreboard still shows that I'm slightly higher up than I am down. But again, I will be the first to admit every time I misstep. But the objective here is just to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward and back yourself, basically.
Who challenges you? If you're in this position where you've self-funded, you said sometimes it's a bit of an echo chamber. I assume you must have, not surrounded yourself with kind of yes men and yes women and sycophants. You must be surrounding yourself with smart people who are willing to challenge you. How do you go about doing that? How do you sort of sanity check your own ideas when you're the boss and you're not sort of accountable to reporting KPIs to anyone?
It's a good question. I love this notion of servant leadership. So I see, frankly, I first of all, I hate this word employer, employee. It does not sit well with me. We're all just team members. I will, again, there's some challenges with that, but even in every single one of the meetings we ever have here, I will always, throughout different junctions throughout the meeting, I'll always say, does anyone want to call bullshit? And frankly, there are plenty of people that give me the opportunity, when they call bullshit, give me the opportunity to be able to talk about the multiple layers and reasons and rationale as to why certain things are being done. And I will always state, my stated intention is to be the dumbest guy in every room I walk into, which again, on paper, given the background I told you about, on paper, that should be absolutely the case of every room I walk into. Maybe I could round this out and say Chew is very much a meritocracy, right? It's not about, if it comes down to opinions, well, then unfortunately or fortunately, mine will always rule. But if it comes down to facts and data will absolutely rule. I will be wrong every day of the week based on data. And so there are different kind of instances and mechanisms we put in place to make sure that everyone has a kind of a stake in this, and everyone has a responsibility to call bullshit if they see something that's slightly off.
So what's next for Chew?
Yeah, I mean, what's even now? This incubator is in full swing. We're testing something pretty extreme right now, and that extreme thing we're testing is to become the corporate incubator, or the outsourced corporate incubator of one of our partners. That's $100 billion company, and essentially what we've done let's say the absurd. I said 9 weeks ago, if we can approve this corporate incubator, I will get you a sale by the end of the year of a product that we didn't have a clue what it was going to be, of a brand that we didn't know, nothing. We had literally nothing. And that was 4 weeks ago. As we stand here today, we've got a product, we've got a package, we've got a brand that's coming together. We launched this thing in 2 weeks. So essentially that's from a standstill zero to 6 weeks. We'll be selling product, not only the easy route, which is D2C, but also in retail. And so this model essentially is going to be, we are building this as really a case study. And so essentially we're going to really be focusing in 2025 very heavily on this venture incubation model, these gritty, risky, high growth, meaningful, impactful brands and products, etc., where we can start to circumvent a lot of the bureaucracy, the natural bureaucracy that exists in these larger corporations. So I'd say that we're crazy at a crazy level. We're looking to do at least 8 more of these in 2025. So that's the hyper focus right now.
That's incredible. Anything about your journey we haven't covered so far that we should?
Maybe one of the kind of the original things that put me on this track of kind of crazy, which was the world seems so conditioned on kind of right and wrong, right? This is the right way to do it. That's the wrong way to do it. And I think a lot of that candidly is conditioned by education. In education, there's typically, when you sit for an exam, did you make the right choice? Yes or no? Whereas, as obviously you know very well, in the startup world, in the entrepreneur world, and frankly, just in the business world, the only bad decision is indecision, right? If you kind of flip and you flop, right? When you make a decision, stand behind it, execute like hell. Even if it's the wrong decision and you execute like hell, you're going to get results. If that result is a whopping great big lesson, great. Use that, apply it to the next thing. Make sure that you're smarter and faster each and every time. So I guess maybe one of the punchlines of my life is about, and maybe the cliches of my life, I should say. I did this little TED talk on this thing called, I called it the difference between excellence and perfection, right? And I think perfectionist is frankly just procrastination, is a giant excuse for people not to just just do something. Whereas the process, the idea of excellence focuses on the path, right? If we continue to tinker with the path, we get faster, we get stronger, we get better, we get more effective, we get all of those things. And I think, I don't want to be that guy to say this is generational, but we seem to be in this moment of, the participation award, good enough, all of these sorts of things, right? The world doesn't give a shit, good enough or not, right? If you don't want it more than anybody else, if you're not prepared to give it more than anybody else, all right? If you don't be the one to catch your own faults versus looking at everything through these rose-colored glasses, everything is awesome. Then again, you'll get swallowed up and spat out. So again, I wake up every day with a great sense of excitement that we can dream something and bring it to life. I guess what happens in the middle of the day can be quite bumpy and turbulent by design to try to throw you off that path, but I still go to sleep at nighttime with all the faith and belief that we're going to be making more of this impact. But I guess at the core and the underlying thing here as well is that the worry doesn't stop. I worry from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep. And that used to feel like a bug, but I think it's actually a feature that it actually keeps, everyone sharp, it keeps everyone, moving forward and not believing in your own story sometimes.
2 questions I have to ask you before we drop here. First one, I see all these books behind you. If you could recommend one book, what book would it be?
So I do that to boost my IQ, particularly during the COVID days. No, I'm a voracious reader. I read probably 3, 4, sometimes 5 books a month. It's the imposter syndrome. But to answer the question, probably my favorite by far that I've gifted probably more than anybody else in the world is a book called Legacy. It's by a guy called James Kerr, and it juxtaposes the sporting world. So I'm a triathlete, so I love competition. The sporting world, which is he analyzes the New Zealand All Blacks, who are the winning most. As an Aussie, this pains me, but they are the winning most team in the world, and business, and how many of those theories and principles hold true in excellence in business and excellence in sport. So Legacy is something that I absolutely recommend to everybody.
And then the second question I have to ask is, what is your favorite restaurant? Anywhere.
I'm going to be a cliche. I'm going to say it depends on mood, setting, who you're with, how you feel, because so here's the thing. I don't believe there is such a thing as best in the world anymore. I used to. But I will tell you, if you've got a craving for fish and chips, I will tell you that there is a place in the south coast of Australia. You can go and you could get your battered fish, sometimes flathead, with chips that are wrapped up in newspaper. You go and you sit on the rocks, you rip that thing open, you're eating that, the sea spray is coming in your face, the sun's setting. I will tell you that will be the best meal of your life in that moment. If you are craving a hamburger and you go to a place and it's just a good hamburger, that will be the best meal of your life in that moment. Or you want to go complicated, back to my old life, which was the 32-course tasting menus, things that will give you experiences you'll never have ever had before in that moment. That'll be the best in your life. It all depends on setting, and mood.